My name is Aubrey Carter, 29 years old, SAP prep coach based in Charlotte, North Carolina. I used to think the worst thing in life was being called a burden by your own mother in front of your sister's ring light and a live stream audience. But it wasn't. The worst was realizing I'd been erased, not emotionally, not metaphorically, but literally. One day, the family photo on our living room wall changed. My spot? Gone. Cropped out like I never existed. Days later, my tutoring website was flagged and shut down. Copyright violation, they said. But the files in question? I had written them, built them, poured years of work into them, and now they weren't mine. That's when the lawyer called. Suddenly, I wasn't just forgotten, I was being dragged into a public battle I never asked for. And here's the part that still haunts me, that wasn't even the worst of it. Have you ever been erased by people who claimed they loved you? Stick with me, because my silence didn't save me. Speaking up did. Growing up in a house full of loud voices, I learned early that silence was my safest currency. While my sister Lila performed ballet routines in the living room for our parents and their friends, I'd be sitting cross-legged by the bookcase, thumbing through set prep books like they were picture books. Our house in Charlotte had these big bay windows that overlooked the street, and I used to sit by them for hours, pretending I was grading papers for students who didn't exist. I was 8. My parents thought it was quirky. Aubrey's just studious, my dad would say with a chuckle. My mom, Margaret, was less amused. She needs to get her head out of those books and into the real world, she'd mutter, too often within earshot. But Grandma Evelyn, she got me. Every Sunday after church, she'd sit next to me on the swing out back and ask what I was working on. I still remember the way her voice would light up when I explained a math trick or a reading strategy. "You've got a teacher's heart," she'd say. "Not everyone sees the quiet ones, but you see everyone." I carried those words with me through high school and college. I even printed them and taped them inside my first lesson planner when I started tutoring seriously at 23. Quiet doesn't mean invisible. Grandma Evelyn made sure I knew that. But things shifted after she passed away. Lila got louder. Her Instagram took off. My parents, always subtly favoring her, made it more official. "She's building a brand," my mom would gush at Thanksgiving while Lila posted behind her turkey plate. I'd be the one doing dishes or setting the table, making sure everything was perfect. No one took photos of that. One Thanksgiving dinner 2 years ago stands out like a splinter. Lila had just hit 50,000 followers and brought a professional ring light to our dining room. I kid you not, a full ring light, parked next to the cranberry sauce. She made everyone do grateful face photos, but when it was my turn, she smiled awkwardly and said, "You kind of throw off the color balance, Aubrey. Maybe skip this one." I did. And like always, I swallowed it. I told myself it wasn't worth the fight, that this was just how families are: messy, imperfect, complicated. But deep down, something broke that day. Not from the exclusion itself, I was used to that. No, it was the way my parents didn't blink. My dad kept carving the turkey. My mom just asked Lila if she needed better lighting. I sat there, holding the mashed potatoes I'd made from scratch, realizing for the first time that I didn't just feel like an outsider, I was one. Still, I stayed. I showed up for birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas brunches. I kept tutoring students on the side, kept building lesson plans, kept organizing materials that no one in my family ever asked about. Until that day, 6 months ago. It started like any other Sunday. I was in the kitchen, reheating tea for the second time. Lila was finishing a live stream on family support and growth, and I overheard her thanking our parents for always believing in her. They smiled and nodded like she'd just won a Nobel Prize. My name wasn't mentioned once, not even in passing. I stood in the kitchen doorway, waiting for someone to look at me. No one did. And then the laptop glitched. Just a flicker, some minor tech issue. But Lila snapped, like I'd unplugged it with my energy alone. "Why does this always happen when you're around?" she spat. "You're like disruptive. You throw off my vibe, Aubrey." It was absurd, laughable, even. But my mom didn't laugh. She said, "She's not wrong." And that was the moment. It wasn't just Lila being Lila. It was all of them, confirming something I'd been afraid to admit. I didn't belong here anymore. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just nodded, walked down the hall, packed a backpack and left. No one asked where I was going. No one asked if I was coming back. That night, I checked into a motel off 4th Street with the last $42.00 in my wallet. The room smelled like old cigarettes and bleach. I sat on the edge of the bed, looking up at the stained ceiling and feeling both free and gut-wrenchingly hollow. The next morning, I woke up early. I had $270.00 left in my account. No job, no plan, no backup. But I still had my brain. And in that tiny smoke-scented motel room, I made a choice. I logged into an old tutoring platform I hadn't touched in years, updated my profile, and wrote under my bio, "I believe in showing up, even when no one else does." I applied to every listing I could find: SAT prep, college essays, GEG support, whatever I could teach. By noon, I had 2 clients. By the end of the week, it wasn't glamorous. I worked out of the library using borrowed Chromebooks and my motel as an office. But I was building something slowly, steadily. For the first time in a long time, someone was listening. One of my students, a shy sophomore named Riley, looked at me during our second session and said, "You're the only one who makes this make sense." I smiled, almost afraid to believe it, but maybe, just maybe, I wasn't invisible anymore. Have you ever stayed silent so long you forgot what your voice even sounded like? Stick with me, because the next part, that's when the silence shattered. Things were quiet for a while, deceptively quiet. I had my tutoring schedule set, a couple of students I really connected with, and a rhythm that felt almost like peace. Every morning, I'd grab the $1.75 drip coffee from the cafe near the bus depot, plug in my charger at the corner table, and dive into lesson plans like I was building an empire out of nothing but grammar exercises and hope. But then, odd things started happening. First, one of my new students, a high school senior named Jordan, emailed me asking if I'd moved my website. He said the link I'd given him was showing an error message. I figured it was a hosting glitch, but when I checked the back end, I found my entire site had been flagged. A red banner read, "Content disabled due to copyright violation." I hadn't used anyone else's work. Everything on that site, the rubrics, the diagnostic tools, the lesson scaffolding, I had built from scratch over years of tutoring sessions, coffee-stained notebooks, and trial and error with real students. I reached out to my hosting platform. Their response came 24 hours later. The reported material matches content submitted by another party. Please verify ownership documentation if you wish to file a counterclaim. Another party. It didn't take long for me to find out who. That same day, I got an alert from LinkedIn. Someone had tagged me in a comment under a post for a new online learning academy. It was called the Success Collective. At the top of the page was a glowing headshot of my sister, Aubrey Carter, with a caption, "Founder, thought leader, curriculum designer." I stared at it for a long moment. Then I scrolled. The site layout identical to mine. The modules lifted word for word. Even the diagnostic rubric I'd created, down to the color code performance tracker repackaged under her name. I couldn't breathe. My fingers were ice. I felt my throat close up, not in panic, but in rage. Controlled, clean, precise rage. I clicked on the About section. That's when I saw it. A paragraph from her PR rep, pitching a podcast interview. Lila built this platform from the ground up, inspired by overcoming family challenges and creating something of her own after breaking ties with a toxic sibling dynamic. And underneath that, we ask that her estranged sister, who has a history of emotional instability and jealousy, not be contacted for comment. It's taken years to rebuild the family's image. I read it twice, then a third time. Emotional instability, jealousy, not to be contacted. I sat there at that cafe table, the clatter of dishes and hissing espresso machines suddenly miles away. My hands shook, but I didn't cry. We stall over again. Not just overlooked, not just excluded. This time, I was rewritten. She hadn't just stolen my work. She'd stolen my name, my value, and twisted the narrative so she looked like the phoenix and I was the ashes. But then came the call. It was from Jenna Price, my college roommate and once best friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in 2 years after a messy falling out caused by surprise family drama. She said, "Hey, I don't want to start something, but I think you need to see this." She texted me screenshots from the back end of a platform we had once built together when I was toying with launching a tutoring startup. Everything, my lesson structures, my branding drafts, even early Canva templates with my watermark had been accessed 3 months prior. Guess who had admin access? Lyra. Guess who I had let use my laptop during a family weekend when she said she wanted to help me freshen up my online presence. I had trusted her. She had stolen everything while smiling across the kitchen table. Jenna asked, "What are you going to do?" I didn't answer her right away. I just closed my laptop, packed my charger, and stepped outside into the Charlotte humidity. The sky was gray, the air heavy like the world knew something was about to break. I walked 2 blocks in silence, my sneakers tapping against the sidewalk, past familiar storefronts and unfamiliar faces. And then my phone buzzed. 12 missed calls, all from my dad, followed by 2 from my mom, then a voicemail from my sister. I didn't listen at first. I didn't want to hear another lie, another plea, mass disconcern, another version of the truth where I was the villain. Something in me, maybe that quiet part Grandma Evelyn used to call your knowing heart, told me to press play. My dad's voice was strained, flat. "Aubrey, we need your help. Your sister's being accused of plagiarism. It's all over the internet. We need you to clear this up." That's when I realized. They didn't call because they missed me. They called because the house they built on stolen bricks was catching fire. And they needed the one they discarded to put it out. Have you ever been the one they only remember when it's convenient? Because for me, that phone call changed everything. 4. Major betrayal moment. 1,000 words. When I finally gathered the nerve to listen to Lila's voicemail, her voice was frantic, but not remorseful. No tremble of regret, no pause to admit guilt. Just panic. "Aubrey." I sat on the edge of my motel bed, staring at the faded carpet as if it could explain how we got here. 2 sisters from the same bloodline, now standing on opposite ends of a moral canyon. That night, I couldn't sleep, so I did what I always do when my world spirals. I organized. I pulled out old receipts, notebooks, lesson outlines, drafts, saved in a dusty Google Drive folder. I created a timeline color-coded of every single file I'd written, dated, and backed up. I even found the original prototype slides that Leela had copied pixel for pixel. At 3:12 a.m., I sent them all to my lawyer Margot with a subject line that simply read proof. By sunrise, I had a reply. "Clear plagiarism," Margot said. "You have enough to pursue ownership, or at least shut her site down until this was resolved." But even that didn't prepare me for what came next. A few days later, Lila posted a carefully polished video titled "My Truth." It was 5 minutes long. Her voice was calm, her makeup impeccable. She claimed she had collaborated with a family member who was now spitefully demanding credit and trying to undermine years of work. She ended the video with a long pause, staring directly into the camera. "Sometimes," she said, "you give people everything and they still want to see you fall." I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just took a screenshot, then another. That same afternoon, I uploaded a private YouTube video of my own. No filters, no music, just me, a shaky webcam, and a folder full of facts. I screen-recorded timestamps from the Google Drive archive, opened my grandmother's scanned willbook clause that said all educational material co-created with me was legally mine, and read it aloud. Then I placed it side by side with Lila's rebranded documents. No spin, no drama, just truth. But I don't post it publicly, not yet. Instead, I sent it privately to a few of my clients, mentors, and the hosting company who had suspended my site. Within 48 hours, they reinstated my domain and flagged hers for violation. And that's when the real unraveling began. A former intern of Lila's, a college sophomore named Megan, posted anonymously in a Reddit thread. She shared back-end screenshots showing she was asked to retype Aubrey's content in different words to make it sound fresh. She included email chains from Lila's PR agency, where my name was deliberately removed from early concept drafts. And then the floodgates opened. A journalist from a small but growing education blog reached out. She said, "We're covering the digital plagiarism scandal involving the Success Collective. Would you be open to comment?" That moment hit harder than I expected. Not because I wanted attention, but because someone, finally, saw what I'd been screaming into a void for years. That I was real. That I was right. And then came the biggest gut punch of all. A new photo appeared on my mom's Facebook page. It was a glossy family picture, taken just days ago at a vineyard. My parents, Lila, even the dog, but not me. Not even a mention. Just a caption, "Grateful for family, always." I zoomed in, where the old family portrait used to hang in the hallway, the one taken when I was 16. There was now a new one. Me, scrubbed out of history. As if I'd never been there. As if I was never wanted. I closed the app, set the phone face down, but then, my fingers moved on instinct. I opened the curriculum archive folder, scrolled past lesson plans, worksheets, and a note from Grandma Evelyn that I'd scanned years ago. At the bottom was a file I had forgotten, legal_will_e Carter PL. I clicked it open again, and I read her handwriting. All intellectual property created by or in collaboration with my granddaughter, Aubrey Carter, is to remain solely hers. I believe in her work, her mind, and her voice. Let it never be silenced. That night, I didn't sleep. I didn't eat. I just sat with those words. Because they were the only thing in the world at that moment that felt like truth. Then, just before dawn, there was a knock at my motel door. I tensed. It was too early for room service, and I wasn't expecting anyone. Through the peephole, I saw a familiar face, Jenna. She held a manila envelope in one hand and a gas station coffee in the other. "I know it's early," she said gently, "but you need to see this." Inside the envelope were 3 printed pages, a draft pitch from Lila's agency for a new curriculum licensing deal. Every page referenced proprietary methods that were unmistakably mine. I looked up at Jenna, jaw tight. "How did you get this? I never deleted my old work emails." Lila's assistant accidentally copied me, and that was it. The final thread snapped. I pinned those papers to the wall next to Grandma's will and Lila's video transcript. 3 truths. 1 voice. They tried to bury. If you've ever been blindsided by someone who once called you family, drop a below, because this wasn't over. The morning after Jenna left, I sat on the floor of my motel room for what felt like hours. The air was stale, thick with that odd combination of cigarette smoke and industrial-grade cleaning spray. My knees were pulled to my chest, forehead resting against them. I wasn't crying, not exactly. The tears had stopped somewhere between shock and numbness. I wasn't even angry, just hollow. Like someone had scooped out everything that once made me, me. My phone buzzed beside me, face down on the thin carpet. I didn't move. I knew who it was, or at least, I knew the pattern. When things burned, they called me. When they needed someone to mop up the emotional mess. Suddenly, I was family again. Then, another 14 missed calls. 8 voicemails. The last one was from my father. His voice sounded older than I remembered, like something had cracked inside him too. "Aubrey, your sister's in a bad place. The internet's turned on her. People are saying she plagiarized. She's not doing well. We don't know what to do." He paused, then added the line that hit like a slow stab. "We need you." Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "You were right, just, we need you." I picked up the phone and stared at the call log. My name was still saved as Aubrey Charlene in my dad's contacts. Not even daughter, just a location. I listened to the rest of the voicemails. My mother's voice was brittle. "Aubrey, please. Your sister's fragile. This is getting out of control. We're asking you to help us fix it. We can't do this without you." I whispered to the empty room. "You never did it with me either." Then came Lila's voicemail. Her voice was unhinged, mascara tears and pacing the hallway energy oozing through the line. "You always do this. You ruin things. We gave you everything and this is how you thank us?" No. They gave me silence. Erasure. Blame. They gave me an empty chair at every dinner table I still showed up for. And now, they were trying to hand me responsibility for the fire they lit. I closed my eyes, let the silence fill the space. Then I turned to my laptop. I hovered my cursor over the folder labeled Curriculum Archive. The thought crept in, the dangerous one. Maybe I should just delete it, burn it all down. If they were going to erase me anyway, maybe I should make it easy. But my hand froze. And that's when I saw it. A subfolder I hadn't noticed in years. Grandma_legal. I clicked. Inside was a scanned PDF of my grandmother's will. I'd uploaded it 5 years ago, after she passed, mostly for safekeeping. I opened it. There it was, her signature, her handwriting, the clause. All intellectual property and preparatory curriculum created or co-developed with my granddaughter, Aubrey Carter, shall remain under her sole name. She is the steward of this work. Trust her voice. My breath caught. It wasn't just emotional validation. It was legal ownership. She had protected me, even in death. My hand trembled as I reached for the motel notepad. I started writing without thinking, mapping it all out: dates, incidents, stolen content, quotes from emails, my own drafts. I drew arrows, circled words, scribbled notes. It didn't feel petty anymore. It felt necessary. A knock broke the silence. My body jolted. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, it was the motel manager, holding a printed letter. "For you," he said. "Delivered this morning. Certified." I took it with shaky hands and closed the door. That was a formal cease and desist letter from Lila's lawyer. They were trying to block me from speaking publicly, claiming defamation, demanding I remove all references to her name and platform from my materials. Wasn't just betrayal anymore. It was war. I placed the letter next to Grandma's will on the wall. Then I added the photo of our family. The new one. The one I'd been erased from. I printed it from Facebook that morning. I drew a red X where I used to stand. By the time the sun set, I had a shrine of truth built on motel wallpaper. And still the phone buzzed. Still, the voicemails came. I didn't answer. Not because I was trying to be cruel, but because I had nothing left to give them. They didn't want me. They wanted my silence. My erasure repackaged as peace. But I had one thing left they hadn't expected. Receipt. I pulled out my laptop, opened the webcam and clicked record. Not to post. Not yet. Just to speak. To remember what it felt like. Because in that moment, sitting on that creaky motel bed, surrounded by legal files and shattered illusions, I realized something that chilled me. I hadn't heard my own voice in days. Not my real one. Not the voice that explained reading comprehension to terrified students. Not the one that comforted crying kids over essay drafts. Not the one that told a younger me, "One day they'll see what you've built, and if I didn't speak now, really speak, I might forget how." Have you ever hit rock bottom so hard you couldn't tell if you were breaking or waking up? The next morning, I woke before sunrise. The motel curtains glowed faintly, edges tinged with the softest orange. It wasn't beautiful, not really. The window was streaked. The view overlooked a parking lot, but something about that light reminded me I was still here. And maybe that mattered. I reached for the chipped mug from the nightstand and filled it with stale coffee from the mini pot. It tasted awful, but I drank it anyway. It was hot. It was real. It was mine. After days of numbness, I needed motion, even the smallest kind. So I walked. Just a few blocks. The cool air slapped my skin awake. The streets were mostly empty, save for joggers and the early shift baristas at the corner cafe. I passed a laundromat, a boarded-up bookstore, and finally, a run-down community center with a faded chalkboard sign outside. Free Wi-Fi, coffee refills, stay as long as you need. That's all it took. I stepped inside, heart pounding like I was trespassing. But the woman behind the counter barely looked up. She just nodded and handed me a punch card. I ordered the cheapest drink, $1, 25 cents for drip, no refills, and slid into the corner booth by the outlet. The Wi-Fi was slow, but it worked. And that's when I logged back into my tutoring portal. 6 new messages. One of them stopped me cold. A parent named Tasha Green had filled out a full intake form. Her daughter Nina was a junior in high school, struggling with reading comprehension, test anxiety, self-esteem issues. The last question on the form read, "What do you want your child to gain from this experience?" Tasha had typed believe. She needs to believe she's capable again. I read it 3 times. It was like looking in a mirror. That afternoon, I booked a free Chromebook slot at the library down the street. I had to wait 2 hours, but I didn't care. I sat in the kids section, organizing materials on the floor like I used to do in my old bedroom. When it was finally my turn, I logged in and responded to every inquiry I had, with detail, with care, like each student was the only one in the world. By sunset, I had 3 sessions booked. But enough. Later that week, the community center manager, a guy named Devin with tired eyes and a kind smile, asked me, "You run your own thing?" I nodded. "Teaching?" I hesitated. "Yeah. Such prep mostly. Reading, writing." He whistled. "That's real. My niece could use that. You got a card?" I didn't, but I wrote my name and number on a napkin and handed it to him. That night, in the motel, I opened my laptop again. I made something new, a simple 1-page site. No photos, no frills, just my name, my credentials, and a quote from Grandma Evelyn: "Teach like no one sees you yet, but someday they will." The next day, I received a reply from Tasha. She'd scheduled Nina's first session for Friday, and just like that, a spark caught fire. Word spread quietly. A local teacher referred me to 2 more students. Devon's niece booked a weekend slot. Even Jenna posted on her story, "If you want your kid to pass the SAT, there's only one name I trust." It wasn't viral. It wasn't loud. But it was growing. I moved out of the motel 2 weeks later, found a sublet, a room in a house with 2 other women and a cat that hated everyone. It wasn't glamorous. The floorboards creaked and the bathroom door didn't lock properly, but it had a desk. And for the first time in months, I had a place to work that didn't smell like bleach and despair. One night, while organizing my teaching materials, I came across an old note I had written to myself on a pink sticky tab. "Your voice matters. Don't let silence feel like safety." I don't remember when I wrote it. Maybe back when Lila first started going viral. Maybe the first time Mom told me, "Don't start drama." Either way, it hit different now. Because silence hadn't saved me. But speaking, it was building something. That week, I booked a call with Margot. We went over next steps. She explained the legal filing process, the documentation I already had, and what it would mean to take formal ownership of my work. "You're not suing yet," she reminded me. "You're protecting. There's a difference." And somehow, that was the first moment I believed it. I wasn't attacking. I was reclaiming. Taking back what was mine, not just the curriculum, but the identity they had tried so hard to rewrite. Have you ever felt your spark return after thinking it was gone for good? Because that tiny flame? It saved me. First thing I did was print the will again. Not because I needed more copies, but because holding it in my hands grounded me. The paper felt heavier now, like it carried more than ink and intent. It carried her belief in me, Grandma Evelyn's quiet promise that I wasn't invisible, not to her. Then I emailed Margot. "Let's go forward, make it formal." She responded within the hour. "I'll start filing the ownership claim today. Once it's registered, they can't use a word of it without facing consequences." Something shifted in me as I read her words. Not revenge, clarity. Power. Not loud, not showy, just solid. That same afternoon, I gathered every scrap of evidence I had. Time-stamped drafts, original lesson plans. The diagnostic rubric I'd hid written years ago, on a yellow legal pad. Even screenshots of conversations with students who thanked me for helping them pass. And then I opened a blank document and started writing. Not curriculum. A timeline. I titled it How I Was Erased. It wasn't angry or accusatory, just factual. A step-by-step breakdown of what Lila had taken when she accessed it and how she presented it as her own. I added footnotes, links, and even photos where applicable. I didn't know what I was going to do with it, not yet, but it felt like armor. By Friday, the ownership paperwork was in process. Morning, I received a text from Jenna. Check your email, now. I opened my inbox and froze. A digital cease and desist had landed from Lila's team. They were trying to block my rebuilt website, claiming I was infringing their content, the very same materials I had created years before she ever typed a word. I laughed, short, dry. And then I forwarded it to Margot. She called me 10 minutes later, voice crisp. They're bluffing, but this is their final swing. They're trying to paint you as a copycat in case this goes public. She paused. What do you want to do? I looked at the folder on my wall, Grandma's will. Lila's internal emails, the old family photo where I used to be. And I knew. I want to document everything, and then I want to speak, so I did. That afternoon, I recorded a video. No filters, no background music, no tears. Just me, face bare, voice steady, laying out the facts. I opened with a quote from my grandmother's will. Then I screen-shared side-by-side comparisons of my curriculum and Lila's academy. Same structure, same diagrams, even the same typos in a few places. Errors I had corrected later, but she had apparently copied before that. Then I showed the cease and desist letters. I ended the video looking directly at the camera. I don't want to ruin anyone's life. I just want my name back. I want my work to be mine again, and I want to stop being treated like a problem just because I won't stay quiet. I uploaded it to YouTube, unlisted. Then I shared it with 5 people: Jenna, Margot, Devin at the community center, Nina's mom Tasha, and Melgan, the former intern. No hashtags, no drama, just a quiet ripple. But ripple spread. Tasha shared it in a Facebook group for parents of high school juniors. Devin shared it on LinkedIn. Megan, bless her, posted it in a professional educators subreddit with the caption, "You don't need to be loud to be right." Within 72 hours, the video had 28,000 views. Within a week, it passed 200,000. And with it came something I never expected. Stories. Emails from other women, other daughters, other sisters who had been pushed out, erased, overridden by people they loved. Educators who'd had their work stolen, students who said my free reading guides helped them pass when no one else could. One student, a senior named Camila, emailed me. "You helped me believe I could get into college. I did. Full ride. Just wanted you to know." I read that message over and over until the words blurred. Then I printed it and added it to the wall, right next to Grandma's letter. And that's when the biggest blow landed, but not for me. A former contractor for Lila's branding agency came forward. She posted a full thread on Twitter, or whatever we're calling it now, detailing how she had been told to sanitize old content from a collaborator's archives and repackage it under Lila's brand. She even attached invoices, Slack messages, meeting notes, receipts. It was overkill. I didn't have to say anything. The internet did it for me. Lila went dark for days, then posted a vague statement about trust being violated and collaborations gone wrong. No name, no apology, just more spinning. But this time, no one bought it. The comments under her post were brutal. One said, "Funny how the quiet ones are always the ones actually doing the work." Another, say her name. Aubrey Carter. Give her back her work. I didn't respond. I didn't need to. Instead, I went for a walk. The air smelled like new rain. The pavement glistened. I passed a school bus, watched a little girl press her forehead to the window, eyes wide like the world still made sense. And I smiled. Because mine finally did. You ever watch someone try to bury you and realize you'd already grown roots too deep to kill? That was me. And I was just getting started. Jenna's perspective, 6 months later. I still remember the night I found that envelope in Margaret Carter's kitchen. I wasn't snooping, truly, I wasn't. I was dropping off a custom cake Lila had ordered for some photo shoot, and while waiting for her to finish a call, I wandered. The kitchen felt sterile, staged, like no one really lived in it anymore. Then, I saw it, a plain cream envelope, wedged under expired Bed Bath & Beyond coupons. Aubrey's name written on it, her handwriting, unmistakably neat, rounded, like how she used to label her study binders in college. Unopened, still sealed. I froze. I thought of all the nights Aubrey stayed up tutoring kids for free. The way she used to color code everything, because in her words, structure is safety. I thought about our last real conversation, years ago, when she tearfully told me she'd sent a birthday letter to her mom. One last try, she had said. And here it was, thrown aside like junk mail. I took it, quietly. Guilt crawled over me like ivy, but I didn't care. I knew it didn't belong there. I knew she deserved to know. 6 months later, I watched from the audience as Aubrey, in a simple blazer and jeans, accepted a small community educators award at a library downtown. She didn't make a big speech. She just read the names of her students who'd passed their SHTs this year. Each one like a tiny rebellion against everything that tried to silence her. When she stepped down, I caught her eye. She smiled, not a full grin but a soft one. Earned. We hadn't spoken much since that night in the motel, but I carry that envelope with me still, unopened, just in case she ever wants to open it herself, on her own terms. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for someone is witness them. The fall came quietly, not with screaming headlines or paparazzi crowds, just a slow, undeniable unraveling, one thread at a time. After the educator subreddit exploded with receipts, Lila's brand sponsors began pulling back. A few issued carefully worded statements. We are reevaluating ongoing partnerships in light of recent allegations. Within a week, 3 of her biggest collaborations had vanished from her page without a trace. One even publicly thanked those speaking out for integrity in education. Her weekly livestream, once averaging 60,000 viewers, dropped to less than 8,000, then 3,000. Then she skipped a week entirely. She said it was for mental health, but everyone could see it for what it was, retreat. Her comment sections used to overflow with heart emojis and praise. Now they were laced with barbed questions. Didn't this belong to your sister? Isn't that her curriculum? Why haven't you said her name? Lila didn't respond. Muzikaiva off comment. Then she turned off the camera. And then one night, she posted a statement. Just text, white background, no image, no video. Family matters are complicated. I regret the way things were handled, and am stepping away from content creation for the foreseeable future. No apology. No name. Just a quiet shuffle off stage. It wasn't enough. Within 24 hours, the Success Collective website went offline. Parents who had purchased her courses began emailing me directly, asking for guidance, asking for clarity. Some were angry, others just confused. A few apologized to me. Former collaborators took down posts. Journalists stopped returning her calls. Even Margaret, our mother, who once described Lila as a visionary, refused to speak publicly. Someone later told me she was seen exiting a lawyer's office alone, face gray and drawn. She had bet on the wrong daughter. The last I heard, Lila had hired a crisis firm out of Nashville. She was pivoting again to a new brand focused on emotional resilience and personal clarity. The irony made me laugh, not loud, not bitter, just enough to breathe. Then came the envelope, delivered by courier, stamped confidential. It was a settlement offer, 6 figures, full legal acknowledgement that I owned the curriculum, a request to restore my name to all original content, a quiet apology embedded in legalese, and in exchange, silence. I could never speak about the events publicly again, couldn't post, couldn't write, couldn't even whisper. The money was real. I sat with it for a full hour, at my second-hand desk, in my quiet rented room with a view of a cracked parking lot and a lonely oak tree. I shredded it. Ugh, I didn't need her money. I had what I came for. My name, my work, my voice. The power she tried to steal, it was never hers to keep. A week later, Lila's last post disappeared. Her accounts went dark. No statement. No goodbye. Just gone. Jenna sent me a single message the next day. That's it. You outlasted her. But I didn't feel like I'd won. Not exactly. I just felt still. Safe. For the first time in years at peace. Sometimes the downfall doesn't come crashing. It fades slowly, steadily when someone finally runs out of other people's light to steal. And when that light returns to its rightful place, it shines brighter than ever. It's been a year now. One full revolution around the sun since the motel, the emails, the voicemail that broke me, and the video that brought me back to life. And I still haven't heard from them. Not Lila, not Margaret, not Richard. Not a single call on my birthday. No message when I quietly launched my new tutoring platform. Not even a forwarded chain email about a family member's health or some generic thinking of you. But that silence, it doesn't sting like it used to. It feels earned. Because for the first time in my life, I don't measure love by proximity. I measure it by presence, and my family was absent long before they were gone. I live in a different part of Charlotte now. A small walk-up apartment with uneven hardwood floors, a stubborn front door, and a window that catches the morning light just right. My office is modest. A folding desk, second-hand chair, printer on the floor. But the walls, they matter. On one side, I've pinned Grandma Evelyn's will. A thank you note from Camilla, the student who earned a full scholarship. An email from the mom of a boy with dyslexia who passed his ACT after 3 failed tries. A photo from my first tutoring cohort, all 5 smiling faces, mid-laugh, in a public library room that smelled like old books and lemon wipes. And right in the center, a printout of the line that started it all. You don't owe people silence just because they share your last name. I wrote that. I believe that. Now I teach that. I've grown my new platform slowly, intentionally. I don't do flashy promos or partnerships. I focus on kids, real kids who've been overlooked, underestimated, and ignored. I offer free office hours on Sundays, and every quarter I give away 3 full-ride tutoring packages to families who can't afford the services. Last month, I started something I never thought I'd be strong enough to do. I launched the Aubrey Carter Scholarship Fund. It's small, $5,000, 0 cents a year, broken into 5 microgrants, enough to pay for books, prep courses, test fees. But it means something. It means I get to pass on the grace that was once given to me quietly, legally, and in writing, by the only person who ever saw my full worth from the beginning. I got a handwritten thank you card from one of the first recipients. You helped me believe I wasn't dumb. That changed everything. I held that card for a long time. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. I've stopped waiting for apologies that won't come. I've stopped writing messages in my head to people who never bothered to reply in real life. I've stopped needing the people who tried to erase me to understand why I had to walk away. Because walking away wasn't bitterness. It was survival. And now it's legacy. The last time I saw Lila, she was standing outside my apartment building. This was months ago. I didn't expect her. She didn't call. She just stood there, clutching her phone, eyes glassy. She didn't say much, just, I don't know how to fix this, and I looked at her, not with hatred, not even anger, just peace. You don't have to, I said. I already did. She didn't follow me inside. She didn't text. She hasn't come back. Because some people come into your life to teach you what love isn't, so that when you find the real thing, the real respect, the real support, the real home, you recognize it, you cherish it, and you protect it. So, here's my takeaway. Not everyone will choose you even when they should. Not everyone will value your voice, your effort, your honesty. But that doesn't mean you stop speaking. That doesn't mean you shrink to fit their comfort. Because the world is full of people who are still listening, even when it feels like no one is. Find them, teach them, love them, build something for them. And when you do, don't look back. If you found hope in this story, if you've ever rebuilt yourself in the silence left behind by people who swore they loved you, hit like, subscribe, and share your story below. Because your voice, it matters. And it's time the world hears it.